My name is Harper Lane, and this morning began like any other. Coffee brewing, sunlight spilling across my marble kitchen counter, my son's laughter echoing from the living room. From the outside, everything looked perfect. The kind of quiet, polished life people post about but never really live. But then my phone buzzed. Once. Twice. A third time. The screen glowed with a name I hadn't seen in years, Michael Lane. My ex-husband. My chest tightened, but I didn't answer. I thought I'd buried that part of my life. The marriage that fell apart, the betrayal that nearly destroyed me, and the parents who chose him over their own daughter. I thought success, distance, and time had erased the sting. I was wrong. When the fourth buzz came, I finally looked. It wasn't just a message. It was a legal notice, a summons regarding custody. My parents' names were listed as petitioners. Petitioners. For a second, the room tilted. The smell of coffee turned bitter, and my pulse thundered in my ears. I gripped the counter just to steady myself. They'd already taken one thing from me. My inheritance, my security, my future. Now they wanted to take my son. The part that cut deepest wasn't shock. It was clarity. Somewhere between heartbreak and survival, I'd learned that betrayal doesn't always end. It just waits for a new opening. I straightened my silk blouse, took a breath, and whispered to myself, not this time. Because this time, I wasn't the broken daughter or the abandoned wife. This time, I was ready to fight. 5 years ago, I was a very different woman. Younger. Softer. Naive enough to believe that love and family could conquer everything. Michael and I had just celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary when the cracks began to show. He was charming, too charming, and my parents adore him. To them, he was the golden boy I should be grateful to have. But behind closed doors, his warmth turned cold, his voice sharp. Every dream I spoke about was unrealistic, every ambition selfish. Still I stayed, because that's what good daughters and wives did. When my grandmother passed, she left a trust fund meant for me, something she'd set aside long before I was born. For Harper's future, Hurwell had said. I didn't know the amount, but I knew it represented her belief in me. A month later, I found out that my inheritance had been restructured. My father said it was for financial efficiency. My mother said it was simpler this way. And Michael, well, he already knew. The money was transferred into a joint investment under his name. When I confronted them, my father's expression was icy calm. You're not good with money, Harper. Michael will take care of it. My hands trembled so hard the papers nearly slipped from my grip. It was Grandma's gift to me, I whispered, my voice cracking. My mother's only response was a sigh, the kind that dismissed me entirely. And Michael, he didn't even look guilty. Just smug. It's all one family, babe. What's yours is ours. That night, I packed a suitcase. Not much, just enough to get by. My son was only a year old, asleep in his crib. I remember standing over him, tears dripping onto his blanket, promising him something I wasn't sure I could keep. I'll make us safe. I'll never let them hurt you too. As I zipped my bag, I caught sight of the small locket my grandmother had given me when I turned 16. Inside it were 2 words engraved in tiny cursive. Own yourself. I slipped it around my neck, feeling the cool metal press against my skin like armor. Then I walked out the door, no plan, no safety net, no inheritance. Just a mother, her son, and a promise. That night was the death of the woman I had been, and the birth of the one I would become. The first year on my own was a blur of exhaustion and survival. I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of Portland, the kind where the heater clanked all night and you could hear your neighbors argue through the walls. I waitressed double shifts while my son, Noah, stayed with a kind older woman down the hall who charged half of what she should have. Every dollar I earned vanished into bills, formula, and rent. Still, every night after Noah was asleep, I'd sit at the tiny kitchen table with my laptop and a dream. I'd always loved design. Color, space, emotion woven into something beautiful. It felt like control in a world that had stripped me of it. So I started taking online classes. Free ones at first. then cheap certifications when I could afford them. The turning point came when I met Lydia Blake, a senior designer at a firm downtown. She'd come into the diner where I worked, always sitting at the same booth, always alone. One night, she noticed the sketches I was doing on my order pad, layouts, logos, random bursts of creativity that didn't belong in a restaurant. "These are good," she said, setting her coffee down. "You ever think about doing this for real?" Her words lit something inside me. For real. Lydia became my mentor, tough, brilliant, and refreshingly honest. She taught me about design, business, and boundaries. "You don't ask for space, Harper. You take it," she'd say, stirring her coffee with a smirk. Under her guidance, I built my first freelance website, took small gigs, local cafes, startups, boutique brands. My early work wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The first time a client sent me $500, I cried. Not because of the money, but because someone was finally paying me for my worth, not for who I belonged to. Over time, the projects grew bigger. Lydia connected me with investors. I learned to pitch, to manage, to negotiate without flinching. Within 3 years, I founded Nova Design Studio, specializing in brand storytelling for women-led businesses. It became more than work, it was a quiet rebellion. I posted modest updates on social media. "New project done," or "exciting week ahead." Never enough for anyone back home to suspect how well I was doing. Let them think I was still scraping by. I liked the invisibility. It gave me freedom. By the 4th year, Nova had a team of 6, clients across the country, and a quiet reputation for excellence. My apartment turned into a townhouse, then an actual home with a backyard for Noah. The day I signed the deed, I pressed my grandmother's locket against my chest and whispered, "We did it." But I never forgot. Every late night, every doubt, every tiny success was a step away from them and a step toward myself. So when that legal notice arrived, it didn't hit a broken woman. It hit someone who had already rebuilt from ashes. They just didn't know it yet. The court hearing was set for a Thursday morning in late spring, the kind of day that looked deceptively peaceful, all blue skies and gentle warmth. I dressed deliberately, an ivory blouse, tailored navy suit, hair pulled back, minimal jewelry except for my grandmother's locket. Power, but grace. The kind of woman they never believed I could become. When I walked into the courthouse, my parents were already seated beside Michael. My mother's pearls gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. My father's expression was as rigid as I remembered. Michael leaned back in his chair, looking smug, as though this was all just another game he expected to win. Their petition claimed I was financially unstable and that Noah would have a more secure future under their joint guardianship. They used words like concern, responsibility, family preservation. It was theater, cold and calculated. I said nothing at first. I let my attorney handle the introductions, the legal motions, the small formalities. I simply watched them, calm and unreadable. When it was my turn to speak, I stood. My palms didn't shake. My voice didn't waver. I told the judge about the years I'd spent building my company from the ground up, about Nova Design Studio, the clients I'd served, the jobs I'd created. I presented financial statements, impeccable, transparent, undeniable. But I didn't stop there. "Your Honor," I said, glancing briefly toward my parents and ex-husband, 5 years ago, my inheritance was transferred without my knowledge or consent. It was intended for my future and for my sons. Instead, it was used to fund investments that failed under my ex-husband's name. I never pursued legal action because at the time, I had nothing, no money, no support, no power. But I do now. I handed the clerk a thick file. Inside were bank records, emails, notarized copies of the trust, and my grandmother's handwritten letter to me, her wish that I use her gift to own my life. The courtroom fell silent. My father's face turned pale. My mother's eyes darted to the floor. Michael's smug smile cracked. The judge flipped through the documents, eyebrows lifting slightly. "Mrs. Lane," she said, "it appears you've demonstrated substantial financial stability. I see no reason to question your capability as a parent." I caught the flicker of something in Michael's eyes then. Panic, maybe. Or realization. He leaned forward, whispering harshly to my father. My mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue, as if emotion could rewrite history. When the session adjourned, they followed me out into the hall. My father started first. "Harper," he said quietly, "you've done well for yourself. We didn't realize." I turned to face him. "No," I interrupted. "You didn't care to realize." Michael stepped closer, his voice tight. "You think this makes you untouchable? That money fixes everything." I smiled faintly. "No. But it buys freedom, and that's something you'll never understand." I walked past them, heels echoing sharply against the marble floor. They stood there, three people who once held my entire life in their hands, now small in the reflection of the courthouse glass doors. Outside, the wind lifted my hair as I exhaled. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. What I felt was something purer, quieter, peace mixed with power. That evening, I returned to Nova. My team was still working, the office glowing with warm light and soft chatter. On my desk sat a framed photo of Noah and me, him laughing, me holding him close. This was our life now. Built, not inherited. Earned, not given. And for the first time in years, I felt the weight of the past loosen, like a door closing gently behind me. A week after the hearing, my parents requested a meeting. They wanted to talk things through. My mother had said over the phone, her voice shaky, polite, rehearsed. I agreed, but on my terms. At my office. My ground. When they arrived, they looked out of place among the glass walls and modern art. My father's authority seemed smaller here, my mother's elegance, fragile. I offered coffee, not out of courtesy, but control. Michael came too, uninvited but predictable. He was the kind of man who couldn't stand being left out of power plays. I didn't bother asking him to leave. I wanted him to see what he'd lost. We sat across from one another in the conference room. The city's skyline shimmered behind me, a silent witness. My father started first. "Harper, we made mistakes. We thought we were protecting you." I folded my hands, calm but firm. "You didn't protect me, Dad. You protected him." I nodded toward Michael, who shifted uncomfortably. My mother's eyes glistened. "We just wanted what was best for Noah." "Then start proving it," I said. "Because if you truly care about him, this is what happens next." I laid a folder on the table, my conditions. "First," I began, "you both will return the portion of the inheritance that legally belongs to me. I don't need the money, but I need the accountability. You'll sign the transfer to a trust in Noah's name. No access, no interference." My father stiffened. "That's non-negotiable," I said softly. Second, I turned to my mother. "If you want to be part of Noah's life, you'll attend therapy with me. Family counseling, once a week, for 6 months. No manipulation. No guilt trips. Just honesty." Tears slid down her cheeks. She nodded. Then I looked at Michael. "You'll withdraw all current and future claims. Custody, property, anything connected to me or my son. In return, I won't pursue legal action for the funds you mishandled." He laughed once, short, bitter. "You think I'm scared of you?" I leaned forward, eyes steady. "No. I think you finally should be." Silence fell. My words weren't loud, but they carried the weight of every sleepless night, every insult swallowed, every tear shed in silence. After a long pause, Michael's smirk faded. He signed the paper. My father followed, reluctant but defeated. My mother hesitated, then pressed her pen down with trembling hands. When it was done, I gathered the papers neatly. "This isn't revenge," I said, standing. "It's balance. You taught me how fragile love can be. Now I'm teaching you what strength looks like." They looked at me, not as the daughter or wife they could control, but as a woman they didn't recognize. As they left, I turned toward the window. The city stretched out below, alive and unapologetic. For the first time, I wasn't reacting to their choices. I was defining my own. 3 months later, everything felt quieter. The chaos had settled into calm. The legal battles were behind me. The trust in Noah's name was finalized, and the counseling sessions had begun, slow, Awkward, but real. My parents were finally learning that love wasn't control and forgiveness wasn't weakness. I still didn't fully trust them, but I was learning to let the past exist without letting it own me. Some days that was enough. One evening, after I tucked Noah into bed, I stepped out onto the porch with a cup of tea. The air smelled like rain and jasmine. The city lights shimmered in the distance, but my eyes drifted upward, to the stars. My grandmother used to say stars were the stories we finished, but never forgot. I reached for the locket around my neck, the same one that had followed me through every heartbreak and victory. The metal was warm now, molded by years of skin and sweat and tears. I opened it and traced the engraving with my thumb. Own yourself. For so long I thought that meant standing alone. But now I understood. Owning myself wasn't about isolation. It was about freedom. It was about choosing peace over approval, purpose over fear, love over control. My parents were trying, in their own flawed way. My mother sent letters instead of lectures. My father stopped giving advice unless I asked. Small steps, but real ones. And Michael? He'd disappeared from the city altogether. I didn't hate him anymore. Indifference was its own kind of justice. Noah ran out onto the porch in his pajamas, laughing, clutching his stuffed bear. Mommy, look. A shooting star. I smiled, pulling him into my arms. Make a wish, I whispered. He closed his eyes tightly, then looked up at me. Did you make one too? I nodded, brushing his hair back. Yeah, I said softly. But mine already came true. As he rested his head against my shoulder, the night wrapped around us, still, steady, safe. For the first time in years, I wasn't haunted by what was taken from me. Because everything that mattered, the strength, the freedom, the love of my child, was something they could never touch. I kissed the top of Noah's head and whispered my final vow, not to them, but to myself. They took my inheritance. They tried to take my son. But they could never take the woman I became. And with that, the past finally loosened its hold, leaving only the quiet, unshakable rhythm of a woman who owned herself.